HMT Metal Therapy. I'm joined by Matt Sweeney, who is in Scotland, and I'm joined by Colin Stowe from Gun Ghaol, which I'm going to ask again, have I pronounced that right? Because this is the second time we've done this interview.
So if you want to get it the authentic way, it's Gun Ghaol. So you have to use
Gun.
the sort of back of your throat to make the start of that second word, gh. But I would accept Gun Ghaol because that's how a lot of Glaswegians will say it, often with a much broader accent. So either Gun Ghaol or Gun Ghaol if you want the real authentic Gaelic sound.
Gun. Okay, that's cool. This is actually our second run up of doing this recording because we had a few technical hitches the last time we did it. But you know, mice and men. So Colin is sort of the lead singer and sort of the creator of Gun Ghaol, which is a band that sort of very uniquely sings in Gaelic. And is kind of bringing sort of his background from living the Upper Hebrides into his music, into his metal. So why? Why? Why make things harder and more complicated than they already are for yourself, Colin? And where do you come from, mate? How did this happen?
Yeah, so to take you back to the sort of late 90s, early 2000s, I grew up in the very far north of Scotland with a Gaelic speaking mother and a minister father. And so in that sort of household, you can imagine what we listened to was quite restricted. But my older brother was a bit of a rebel, and he would listen to Linkin Park and Limp Bizkit and Good Charlotte and Blink 182, and obviously would get in trouble and CDs confiscated when my father heard the naughty words. But me being about 4 years younger than my brother, and that dynamic, if you guys have siblings, looking up to the older brother who, yeah, would pick on me, but he was also the coolest guy I'd ever met because he wore black and he listened to these cool bands. And so I started stealing his Hybrid Theory CD when he was out to listen to it. And that's what got me into heavier music. Linkin Park were, I think, for a lot of us, the gateway into what we now ended up listening to. But in amongst all of that, there was then that Hebridean Celtic influence. And if you can think of, let's say, Gaelic bands off the top of your head, you might be struggling, but one that you would most likely get is Runrig, which arguably the biggest Scottish, certainly the biggest Gaelic band in history. And they would be on, like my mum would maybe listen to them now and again, but she would often listen to a lot of the traditional Gaelic music, which was really just folk and sort of trad sound. So a lot of acoustic guitar, a lot of the fiddle, and occasionally the squeeze box, the accordion. And if you take that and then take Linkin Park, you can see there's quite a large gulf
Yes.
between what you'd consider kind of Gaelic music versus the stuff that I was listening to. So fast forward, because obviously I didn't have the thought of combining the two at that point, but if we fast forward, let's say, yeah, 20 years, I then posted a TikTok a couple of years ago around the time of a Gaelic celebration, which is called the Mod. It's held every single year. It's like a week-long competition and celebration of Gaelic song, poetry, writing. It's incredible. I think this year's one is in Glasgow, so check that out in October. And around the time of the Mod, there was this social media competition of, post something to inspire people to learn Gaelic. And I was looking through the videos, and it was all just twee, kind of old fashioned people in kilts and singing these traditional songs. I'm like, right, this isn't really fulfilling the brief in in my opinion. So I posted my very first TikTok, which was me screaming nonsense lyrics in Gaelic, and it went mildly viral in a way that sort of Gaelic music can. So that instantly, just in that first video, I thought, oh, hold on a second. There's probably something in this because people were reacting to it because they had never seen anything or encountered anything like it before. Because, like I mentioned, their kind of understanding of Gaelic music was either runrig or that sort of folksy traditional sound. It was never screamed, it was never heavy. And so just off that first TikTok, I thought, oh, hold on a second here. There's a real opportunity. And over those previous like 10, 15 years, I'd been in dozens of bands, none of which had ever been remotely successful. And then I thought, you know what, maybe this can be something. It'll just be an online project. And here we are at the start of 2026, having had our first full year as an actual band in 2025. We played Belladrum Festival. We opened the second stage on the last day. We headlined in Ireland. We sold out a show in Glasgow with coil guns and 127,000 plus streams from 35,000 people all around the world in 2025, and that was just on Spotify. So it's kind of proved my initial TikTok right, which is Gaelic metal had never been done before. Now it has, and there's an audience for it. So that was a very long answer to a very short question.
And not only have you chosen to do Gaelic metal and be the first to do that, it's that Gaelic and Scots were recognised as official languages of Scotland last year. So you've now got you're in within metal, which is a niche, and then you've got another niche within metal as being the first Gaelic metalcore group. So it must be quite an interesting time to see that happening because it's for a long time Gaelic was sort of dying, and now it's people are starting
Yeah.
to get more interested in it. People are learning it, and now it's recognised an official language. It's almost as if the eyes are certainly going back on it, which is something that I'm quite interested and quite proud of because I can't speak any of the language, but it's interesting to see
Yet.
it coming back.
Yeah, to give people a bit of a history slash overview since records began, Gaelic has been declining in speaker numbers, in native speakers, people who spoke it before they learned English. My mother would be one of them. She actually learned English in school, but those numbers have been falling every single year. And then in 2022, which was the most recent census, we saw the first recorded increase in speakers. It was up by 40,000, and that was nearly 4 years ago. And if you spend any time on social media and you just kind of dip your toe into Gaelic social media, it's a growing sphere, and we are seeing that in our own music as well. So part of that is definitely social media has made a big impact, but also, as you mentioned, Matt, there's that recognition even within Scots that Gaelic is foundational to the country of Scotland. The word loch, for example, it's a Gaelic word. There's maybe like a handful of bodies of water in Scotland with the word lake. Every single other one is loch, Loch Ness, Loch Lomond. Every mountain, Ben Nevis, Ben Lomond, Ben is an anglicised Gaelic word, Ben meaning mountain. So people, even just with those two words alone, you think, oh, hold on a second here. Gaelic is everywhere. It's in the names of places. It's in the names of our cities, our towns, our villages, the names of even surnames. MacDonald, McLean, McFarlane, all of these, they come from Gaelic. And so when people even just for a second recognize, oh, hold on a second, this is kind of important, then as you mentioned, the recognition of it as an official language of Scotland in November, that definitely helps. And it means that, yeah, there is more awareness and more eyeballs on what we're doing as the first and currently the only Gaelic metalcore band in the world.
Yeah, and I mean, I've seen Gaelic almost as like especially as we've sort of talked before, it's almost like the endangered species thing. It's something that's been wiped out through history, very almost like, well, kind of consciously when you go back to like middle age time, but we won't talk about that. I feel really bad for being English now, but a lot of it is it's sort of, if it's endangered, it can be like anything that's endangered. It can be nurtured, can't it? It can be given a habitat to sort of spread, to be encouraged, to be used, to be seen, and you're doing that. That's essentially you're becoming a cultural treasure.
I mean, I'm not sure I would go that far, but I know we discussed this briefly last time, but there was some discussion. It has been used a couple of times that Gun Ghaol, or even myself, just being described as like the pioneer
Yeah.
of Gaelic metal, and I'm uncomfortable with that at the moment. I think in like
Okay.
20 years' time, if we can then look back, let's say we do an interview in 2046, all right? And then we can look back and say, okay, yeah, sure, you know what? That sort of 2023, 24 era when things were
Yeah.
beginning to build up, that's now inspired this band, that band, this band. And now they're doing so much more than we ever thought was possible. I think at that point, I'd accept things like, yeah, you know, like leading the way or pioneer. At the moment, it's just I feel very uncomfortable with that phrase. It has been used. I do understand it
Yeah.
because we are the first, and that will never be taken away from us. But at this point, I think let's just we'll steady on. We'll see how this we'll see how this goes. It's been very promising, and we're excited for 2026. But yeah, let's we'll book in our diaries 2046, and then we
That's
can
fine.
talk about pioneering.
I'm an ex-therapist. I love making people feel uncomfortable. So, do you think it's a really good time to be doing it as well within the metal culture? We've had the last couple of years, especially. We've had a lot of multilingual lyricists in metal, which has been wonderful. Things sort of like baby metal, you know, Slaughter to Prevail. You've we've got me and Matt are like, yeah,
Uh-huh.
can't see them Ireland, but the Hugh, yeah, Bloodywood. Me and Matt are massive fans of Bloodywood, aren't we? I actually went all the way up to Edinburgh just to see Bloodywood and met Matt there because we love them to pieces. Do you think it's a good time? Do you think like the land is fertile for kind of like multilingual sort of bands such as yourselves?
Yeah, there's two main reasons for that. The first one is that this idea of anything with subtitles in kind of mainstream media, I'll pick TV shows to start with, that idea has slowly fallen away because of the influence of Korean media and in particular K-pop, but also movies like Parasite, which, if you've ever seen it, is
Yes,
incredible. It
so
won a
good.
bunch of Oscars years ago, and it's fully in Korean. And
Yeah,
people are now just absolutely fine watching movies and TV shows with subtitles. We've just finished watching Narcos, which is mainly in Spanish and is heavily subtitled. That used to be
I
a
love that.
massive barrier that people would just frankly outright, I'm not watching that if it's got subtitles.
Yeah,
Whereas now, because we live in a world where everything is subtitled, including our like short form social media reels,
yeah,
then actually the whole issue of it being a different language isn't a problem at all because
no,
audiences now are ready for it. They're primed for it because they've been doing it for so long with TV that actually music's not that much of a stretch. And I think the second thing is social media in that because around the world, there's this awareness of Gaelic or even just Scotland generally that
yeah,
we have noticed that people in the States and in Canada who do have Scottish heritage, or perhaps are just interested
yes,
in Scotland or Gaelic culture as a whole because of shows like Outlander, they're now able to access our band and even ways of learning Gaelic that probably even 10 years ago were not possible. You would have really struggled to find us 10 years ago. And that's why I think this is the most fertile or the most likely time I think that Gaelic metalcore could work. And I'm sure in years to come it'll be even easier. But yeah, it really has been a case of right place, right time. Because I think if it were even 10 years ago, I think this would have been much more difficult. So there's a lot of factors, but I do think that changing media landscape, we do have to give a lot of credit to the likes of these Korean, even K-pop artists,
yeah,
plus the Who, Ramstein, I would say as well, arguably landmarks. They're doing a lot of stuff in French,
yeah.
baby metal. All of that has just made, particularly in metal, the idea of performing in a language that's not English completely acceptable and normal.
Yeah. And
Especially now is a good time because just over the pond we've got. I mean, some people love them, some people hate them. They're a very polarizing group. Kneecap, they had the Amazon. They sort of was it a series or a film, and
yeah,
how
They did a
much
film,
they've
yeah.
done for the as it, the I can never remember the difference between the Gaelic and Galgay and Irish Gaelic and stuff like that. But the
Do
amount
you
of
want me to
people
explain
that
it?
yeah,
yeah,
go for it.
do it.
All right. So you will see the English word Gaelic, Gaelic. In Scotland, that word is pronounced Gaelic because it's referring to the language of Gun Ghaol, the language that was spoken in Scotland and is spoken in Scotland, which is Gaelic. That's like my way of saying Espanol in Spanish. So
Okay.
Gaelic is the name of the language, and we refer to it in English as Gaelic. However, you will also see the same word used in Ireland, and in that country it's pronounced Gaelic, but typically they're talking about the sport, Gaelic football. Some people will be referring to the language because Gaelic is the anglicized Irish word Gaeilge, which is a different language to Scottish Gaelic. So there's the first two, the two main ones you need to know about.
Okay.
Irish, which is the word that they would refer to mainly as their language. So the Irish speakers and then the Scottish Gaelic speakers, when we're together, depending on where you're from and how strong your accent is, you may be able to understand each other. But from experience, there are some Irish dialects or Gaeilge dialects I really struggle with. You may as well put me in a room with someone speaking Finnish. Whereas from people, let's say people from Ulster, Donegal, I can kind of muddle through, but it's akin to Spanish and Portuguese, or let's say Italian and Catalan, where they do have shared words, but they are separate languages. So those are the two main ones. The third one is Manx, which is spoken on the Isle of Man. It did go extinct very briefly in the 1970s, but it's now been revived. There's a couple of thousand speakers. There's a real effort being made to preserve the language. So in summary, Gaelic in Scotland, Irish or Gaeilge in Ireland, Manx in the Isle of Man, and they all come under the umbrella of Gaidhlig or Gaelic languages. So there we go. It's clear as mud.
Okay, okay,
Every day
no.
was school day.
There we go. Every day is school day. No, no, it's kind of wonderful, and how, especially in Scotland, because this is something we also talked about before, is the fact that, well, much like the UK, we are weird because we are a very small island, but the cultural differences between something only like 50 miles down the road is fucking enormous, isn't it? Absolutely fucking huge. How, and I think one thing you said, Matt, is you're a Glaswegian, but you know, somewhere in like the Hebrides is completely different to you, like to what you're used to culturally, despite the fact it's like not actually that far away, really, as far as the world goes. So how well received has Gun Ghaol been in Scotland? Is it been something that has been, people have been like, ooh, what are you doing here? Are you sort of messing around with traditions, or have they been like, fuck yeah, this is what we're all about?
Yeah, it's been really interesting actually because we have been very warmly received by the metal world
Yeah,
because it's a world that's sort of for those unusual characters, the misfits, the weirdos. Including, I fully include myself in that, by the way. I used to wear my own teeth to school on a necklace, but that's a different story. Anyway, so we have been really warmly accepted by audiences and people in that metal community because it's such a welcoming community anyway, because we do
yeah,
have people of every shape and size, of every background, with every possible difference or idiosyncrasy you could possibly imagine, and that's absolutely fine. In fact, it's a good thing. And so I think seeing a Gaelic metalcore band arrive, it's been, yeah, we've been welcomed with open arms. The challenge that we've had has actually been from the Gaelic community because in some people's minds, there's a couple of factors. Number one, this isn't what Gaelic should be used for. It should be kept in its sort of sonic box, which, as I mentioned earlier, is the sort of folk traditional sound. And even if you
yeah.
do what the likes of Valtos or Inyal are doing, which is like electronic stuff, it's amazing, by the way.
Okay.
But they still have some trad elements in it. That's okay. But because you're taking Gaelic and you're stripping any sort of trad sound from it, you know, they're not going to find a squeeze box or an acoustic guitar or a fiddle in any of our stuff, then that's where the line is. And some people don't like that. We have had a couple of people make it very clear that what we're doing is essentially an affront to what the language was created for. And that's
Yeah.
only going to get worse because on January 30th, we are putting out a song called Salon, which is the Gaelic word for psalm, as in a biblical psalm.
Yeah.
And when I was growing up, we would listen to Gaelic psalm singing, which, if you've not never heard it, I would encourage you to search it up because it's unlike anything you've ever heard before. And it's beautiful, but it's mournful and it's very special. It's almost sacred in a way. And so, of course, what we've done is we have taken a recording of a Gaelic Sam from about 20 years ago. We've re-recorded the lead voice because the presenter has quite a distinctive tone, and we have put just a massive silly breakdown over it for about 2 minutes. And I'm heading out to the Western Isles to film the music video for it next weekend. That I know for a fact because I've spoken to the person who owns the recording is not going to be received warmly
Yeah.
by that side of the Gaelic world, the sort of more biblical or religious side, I should say.
Yeah.
And I would include myself in that as well because look, my dad's a minister. I grew up with it for 18
Yeah.
years. I still have a lot of friends in that sort of side of the world as well. And so that's very interesting. I'm intrigued to see how that goes, but we know for a fact there's been some reservations made about the fact that we are taking essentially Gaelic samsicking, which is considered that sort of sacred, almost belonging to the islands, and taking it into metalcore, and yeah, putting a big, massive kind of acacia strain tactical nuke breakdown over it. That's bad. That's wrong. Whereas in the metal community, it's more like, this is incredible because they've never heard anything like it before. So that's been really interesting for us. And in fairness, I think I could have predicted that before
Yeah.
this started, was that of the two communities, who is going to be more for it? Like, of course, it's going to be the metal community because you do find in Gaelic, Yeah, there are just people who feel very strongly about its traditional roots and holding on to them, and anything that begins pulling away, or even it perhaps in their interpretation is almost like making fun of it, or is heretical in a way. Then that's those opinions I knew were going to be there. And
Yeah,
then there's a final reason, very briefly. Some people don't like the fact that I wasn't initially a Gaelic, or I wasn't a Gaelic speaking child. I had a few phrases, but I wasn't conversational. I wasn't fluent. I actually learned when I was a teenager. And some people don't like that because you're seen as like an incomer rather than someone who's from that heartland. Though that opinion is less like that one's not been said to my face. But I'm aware that some people are not a huge fan of that because they think you're taking this that isn't yours. Despite the fact I spent probably half my life in the islands, I have the islands tattooed on my neck. My mother, yeah, and like I say, her first language Gaelic. She spoke it to us as kids. Yes, I learned as a teenager, but that doesn't take away the fact that it's my culture, it's my heritage. So again, I'm so sorry, I'm giving massive answers, but great questions as expected.
as of course. But
Well,
no,
even
that's yeah,
even talking about metal and kind of having resistance from that, like you don't even have to look 100 years ago to see when rock and roll and the Beatles and stuff like that started coming out, and all the people that pushed back against that, which we now look back and these are some of the biggest groups on earth. You can't go anywhere without hearing some sort
Yep.
of Beatles song or stuff like that. And it's people don't like change, especially people that have been in cultures for a long time. I think sometimes they feel intimidated when something new or something different treads on that. And it's interesting that, of course, it's a metal band because if it was something else, I think even probably hip hop and sort of electro or techno, it'd be a bit more palatable. But because it's metal and metal's very in your face and very aggressive, and I think it's still outside of the norm, it's going to be pushed back on. But it's interesting that probably the pushback will end up doing the opposite. It'll draw people in because people think, I want to
Mhm.
know why this is what this is about.
There's something to be said for if you're not making art that's upsetting somebody, you're not doing it properly. Now, I'm not sure I fully agree with that, but I do understand the sentiment, which is the art is meant to push boundaries. It's meant to make people think. It's meant to make people approach subjects in a new way. And that's certainly something that I'm very proud of that we do with Gun Ghaol is that we're introducing Gaelic in a way that's never been done before, in a way that people have never encountered it before. Even this week, I was sent some American guy, I think he was called Steven in Stereo. I'd never heard of him before. And I was sent this video where he's reacted to one of our songs a few months ago now. And I've clipped it up, I've put it on our socials, and there's a comment after comment, but particularly on TikTok, with someone saying, I'm a music teacher in Scotland and I never knew this existed, and then sort of like heart eyes and all that. And that's amazing. Being able to do something that's genuinely fresh, that's genuinely new. And yeah, sure, it's metalcore. It has a lot of breakdowns. The stuff I write is not particularly complicated. I'm not the best guitar player, but it is something completely different in that it's in Gaelic, and we're incorporating, as you'll hear with this one, Salem, we're incorporating now sounds and almost the atmosphere, the ambience of Gaelic music, and that sort of traditional Gaelic music, and bringing it into metal, and that sort of boundary pushing sound is something
yeah.
I want to make sure we keep doing, and not just go to, let's say, safer. Radio rock. Whilst I'm talking about it, I mentioned this last time and I want to talk about it again.
Absolutely.
There are a few Gaelic acts in well, kind of folk rock, who I will name, one of which is Manran, and they started out as a Gaelic only act, and that was amazing. Because we never heard kind of Gaelic and even just sort of softer radio rock. Now, as time has gone on, they've begun to write in English. And there's other bands that have done this too, Skippinish, Tidelines, who have been massively successful with their English songs. Yeah, people still like the Gaelic ones, but the English ones, of course, do better. And I understand from a band's perspective, you want to do stuff. Well, some people want to do stuff that's going to make them the most money, that's going to be the most commercially
Yeah,
commercially successful. And if you decide as a Gaelic artist, you know what, if I write songs in English, they're going to do better for me. I get it, but I disagree because I think you're cheapening what made you special, what made you different. And it's in the way that people will criticize metalcore bands for kind of going softer or going for the octane radio sound. They go from this sort of like almost hardcore in their first album, then this sort of modern metalcore second, and then by the third one, it's fully clean and they're just, yeah, they're aiming for that radio airplay. It's the same sort of idea in that I get it because, look, if you want to make your bag, you want to make money from this, absolutely have at it. But if you're cheapening what made you different, what made you special, that's the part I disagree with. And that's where my red line is for Gun Ghaol, which is we will never perform an English song.
Yeah.
There may be English sound bites in our songs. There's one, for example, in Maravtoch, which has Mick Foley at the start talking about he didn't realize that it was called Gaelic. He thought it was called Gaelic. Things like that, I'm absolutely fine with. But anything that comes out of my mouth in a Gun Ghaol song will always be Gaelic. I refuse to cross that line because then you're just like everyone else. You're just like another English language metalcore band. Why would you want to cheapen that? So I don't think it's what you asked, but I wanted to make the point because I'm very clear on this. Which is I understand it, I see why people do it, but I refuse to do that with Gun Ghaol.
Well, last time when we were talking about it, not only do you only sing in Gaelic, but I think I'd asked the question about people collaborating with you or possibly having English-speaking artists, but you've went a
Yep.
step further that you've had artists sing in their own language. So not only are you saying, I don't want to use English, I don't want to take that, for lack of a better term, the easy route, you've given people from their country the opportunity to collaborate with you and your music when you're sort of trailblazing, for lack of a better term, the Gaelic language, and you've let them come in your song and collaborate and bring their language, which is kind of blew my mind because sometimes when I was listening to some of the Gun Ghaol stuff, I was like, "There's got to be English in that." And then when you said it, and I've listened to it more, and I'm like, "No, that's just yeah, there's not English." And it sort of blew my mind a little bit because it's what everyone else does, but you've
Yep.
decided I'm not doing that. I want to do my thing.
There's just briefly on that in the first album that we did, which was I just completely self-produced it. I think in hindsight I rushed it. However, there is a track on that one. I think it's track 4 or 5. It's called Aniolis, and it has a band called Low Hill on it, and their feature is entirely in Finnish. And it's the only, as far as I can recall, okay, I looked it up, the only Gaelic and Finnish song in history. Then there's another song, Ulavesh, which is track 3. We did that with Baloch, who are a Gaelic pop rock band, and their feature was so good. I had to go back and like redo my vocals because I thought there's so much going on here. They clearly had thought long and hard about what they were going to do vocally, and it was so complex and interesting that yeah, it made me actually push it further. So, and Baloch are great if you're looking for sort of an easy listening Gaelic rock band. Excellent. They've only got, I think, 4 songs so far. I want to see more of them, but anyway, they're fantastic. And then we did a song a year ago with an artist called Kin Corruption, who are from Greece, and then their feature, of course, fully in Greek. And it was great, really, really good fun. The thing that we recognized, though, as a band, we became a live act in April once the social media project was getting to a point of like, all right, people actually want to see us play. Let's find some actual band members. Yeah, we got to a point of recognizing these features are great, but they would be better if we have a realistic chance of performing them. And with all the best will in the world, having to fly out some boy from Athens for a 30-second guest spot, we're not quite at that level yet. So the thing we've done with another new song that's coming out January 30th is called Dorochadus, which is both in Irish and in Gaelic the word for darkness, and we are featuring an Irish deathcore act called Vile Blood. And their vocalist, who is massive in social media, he goes under the username Feel Evoked. I think he has 170,000 followers across his socials. I was with him in Ireland on Monday as we shot his part of the music video. And that feature, I mean, he's incredible. But that's a feature that will undoubtedly be performed on stage one day. And again, very first Gaelic and Irish song in heavy music. It's been done in folk, it's been done in traditional sounds. It's never been done in heavy music before until now. And so things like that, you're right, to be platforming other minority languages is so important to what we do, and it's something we're going to keep doing because again, I feel like if we just have an English feature on, you cheapen it. You take away what made you different, what made you special, and I refuse to do that.
So, because I was going to ask that when you're bringing other people in. So, some of my all-time like favorite songs. I'm thinking like Iconoclast by Decapitated or something. It's multiple singers in it from multiple bands who all do their own thing. So I would love to see Rob Flynn just walk on stage with Decapitated and just sing his part of it. I'd love to see Tatiana come and do stuff with there from
Yeah.
but that's not going to happen because it's just not practical. You can't be just like, hi, would you mind coming on stage with me for like 5.5 minutes in your busy tour?
If
Like,
that, yeah.
if that. So I can kind of see, but it's absolutely wonderful it happens. It's just it doesn't translate very well when it comes to live and performed music, does it? Occasionally you will get something absolutely wonderful happen. I'm still there for the time when like Howard comes on to, shake hands with Jesse Leach and then belt out Killswitch Engage together. That's going to happen one day before I die. But it's so impractical to happen, isn't it? It's so difficult to pull off.
Yeah, and it comes to the question of like how far do you want to push your sort of studio sound into a live performance? And I think what I want to get with, or where I'd like to get to with Gun Ghaol is if Meshuggah and their sort of, or Meshuggah, their sort of light show. I don't know if you've ever seen
Yes.
a
We saw it at
performance with
Bloodstock.
the
It
light.
was amazing.
It's just another level. But if
Yeah.
that's like top tier, I would love to be able to get to like aspiring for that because I think as much as you can take your studio sound, what really makes a show special is the show itself, and that's the level we're at now. Like we can see we do have we've got a decent fan base. We're aiming to build on that in 2026, and the next thing for us logistically is all right. How can we make the show even better? Because if we can have people with the music, they're coming along, they're enjoying the song. Sure, they might not understand it, but if we can leave them with a really fun show, then I think that's the next thing to aim for, and that is something that is realistic rather than flying someone over from the other side of Europe for literally a 30-second guest spot.
Yeah.
Whereas when we perform in Ireland next, we'll just get Evan from Vileblood down to the show. Like that's easy peasy. But as you say, the rest of the time, not quite as logistically easy.
Yeah. I mean,
You mentioned Meshuggah, and they're one of those bands that they're one of those bands that when you see them, you don't actually see them because the smoke machines and the lights just cover the whole thing. But it's when they'd played, they very much do what they're going to do. They don't get up. They don't really talk much to the crowd, and you had to pick my jaw up from the floor after their Bloodstock performance because not
so
only
good.
is Thomas Hackey one of the best drummers in the world, he did the whole
Oh yeah.
set with his fucking eyes closed. And I was like, oh my god, like it's just absolutely astounding to watch people from different places in the world, different cultures, but it all comes together to sort of bring that at a festival, and it's just absolute. I think now probably as a kind of fan coming up, it's a really cool time to see people from different countries that aren't just England and America starting to get recognised. Because I think for too long, especially in metal and metalcore, you're either English or American, and now you've got
Yep.
lots of different bands coming, and I think it's been a real breath of fresh air for just not just metal but music in general. That other countries are starting to put their head above the parapet and say, "No, we've got something to offer."
Do you find like once are you at that point where kind of like the location where you're from is getting to be known, and that's helping other bands? I remember I lived in Sheffield when Bring Me the Horizon were kind of coming up, and as they started to get big, a lot more bands from Sheffield who've been working their arses off for so long started to get recognised as well because it was kind of like the sort of the eye of musical Sauron kind of like focused on that part of the world. Do you feel yourself at kind of like, I don't know, bringing focus into other bands and other bands bringing focus into you?
I don't think we're at that level yet with metal, but certainly with Gaelic acts,
Yeah,
yes. And part of that is the social media accounts that we have on TikTok and YouTube, which I started a few years ago. And those accounts are both a mix of band and music content, but also some just general chat about Gaelic and about Gaelic music. So I'll give you an example. Every month on the first, I do a short video which is 5 Gaelic songs for your playlists, and I've done this I think since August or maybe July. And this is a playlist which I think it's on Spotify. Maybe it's like 650 saves, and that's like decent. It's not your tens of thousands yet, but I've been able to get people who have never encountered Gaelic music before to start listening to acts that they're now discovering through those social media channels, which I think now have like 40,000 subscribers on the YouTube and the TikTok. And that's been really nice to see, is bringing people to just the world of Gaelic music. Not necessarily bands from Glasgow, because I don't think we're there yet, But with the world of Gaelic music, yes, having that platform and being able to say to people, hey, you should listen to Isla Scott, Nu the Higgis and Ike. It was my favorite song of last year. It's beautiful, and here's where you can listen to it. And that's something that I've recognized that I can do. And it's not quite on the sort of band level yet. You mentioned Bring Me. I would love to be to be at a point where people are like, oh yeah, Gun Ghaol, Bring Me the Horizon, same sentence. But no, I've got to recognize what we do at the moment is a niche within a niche, and I believe we can break through that. I feel like we're very close to getting to that point of getting a little bit more recognition, but we're not there yet. So for the time being, I'm very proud to be a member of the sort of Gaelic music world, but also the metal world. I would like to this year, with the amount of shows that we'd like to play, increase that sort of sphere of knowledge. Maybe not influence at this point, but certainly having a foot in both camps is really it was unique, and I'm very aware of that.
So if we're talking about the music and we're talking about your suggestions of music, hit us, Colin. So you chose a few songs, didn't you, which you feel have been really meant a lot to you. Let's talk about that. Give us what was the
So I'm
first song?
gonna recall my list off the top of my head. So the first one is Boundaries, and it's Inhale the Grief. It's the closing track of their most recent album, which came out in 2024. And Boundaries, if you listen to their discography, their lyrics by the vocalist Matt McDougall are very dark, and particularly the first couple of albums. There's some incredibly bleak stuff in there, and I mean, metal generally is usually quite bleak, but Inhale the Grief, which is the closer, particularly the last few lines, when I first heard that, it really hit me. And I'd encourage you, yeah, if you don't know the band, if you never heard the song, listen to it and look at the lyrics, and then read the final few and listen to how it ends. The first time I heard it, blew me away. And it's one of my favorite songs, or one of my favorite bands. They headlined the Cat House, I think, in April last year. It was a great show. So yeah, Boundaries, in terms of those sort of emotive lyrics, one of the best out there right now. And that track, Inhale the Grief, phenomenal. Second one is a bit more kind of straightforward. It's Freedom by Gideon. Gideon have kind of gone a bit more new metal in the last few years, but I think this is off my favorite album of theirs, which is called Cold. I think it's 2017. And they did this song with Jamie Jasta, and it's very much freedom over fear, freedom above all weakness, and getting away from this idea of like people can talk, but ultimately I'm in charge here. I'm in control. I really like that as a theme, as an idea. So Freedom by Gideon, it's kind of a no brainer. And then I also added, I think Doubt Me by Beartooth may have been in there as well. That one is just, again, it's quite similar to Gideon in that it's that idea of like, doubt me all you like, but I ain't phased. This isn't touching me. And it's Beartooth as well, really interesting. If you look at the way that Caleb Shomo has changed the way he's written over the course of Beartooth, those initial albums and EPs, very bleak, very dark. There's a song of his called Sick and Disgusting, which it's a very difficult listen. And to see where he is at now with Beartooth, and the song Sunshine's really lovely, but Doubt Me is another one which I think hits the nail right in the head. And it's a really nice to see his growth as a writer, even just as a person. He's clearly now living his best life, and I'm really happy for him for that. And then I think the last one, and correct me if I'm wrong, is Justice for the Damned, Pain is Power. This is a one in the gym. This is probably one of my most played songs in the gym. It's very much like, sure, it can be a well-being song, but it's also like, no, I'm going to push past this, because pain is power. And so getting, and even just the way that song sounds, it's easily the heaviest of the four. It's a gym playlist. I'm about to go from a PB deadlift. Pain is Power by Justice for the Damned. Let's get it. So yeah, all four, all quite different, but all share the theme of being loud and screamy and with breakdowns.
That's my favourite subject within metal sort of songs generally is spit, blood, smile, push through it, and hit life head on. There's not many pop songs like that. I think Taylor Swift probably could get away with doing something like that if she tried. But if you're watching this, Tay, give it a go. So, and I think the last thing we'll sort of ask, Colin, is what do you yourself do sort of for your well-being? Because you obviously live a life which you don't work for anyone but yourself, really, do you? So you're very self-reliant. You know, you must have periods of sort of doubts because you know it's just you, isn't it? It's just you. What helps you push through? What helps you think, I can do this, I can process this, I can help this, I got this. You know, and that could be the way you think, that could be the things you do, could be the exercises you do, the behaviours. What makes Colin Colin?
And to avoid this turning into a therapy session for a long time, I just didn't deal with a lot of my personal issues. And I focused on my career and I focused
Yeah,
on basically anything other than the issues that I had with my own sexuality. So
yeah,
if I take you back to high school, growing up in the Highlands, son of a minister, not a great start for the high school bully targets. But then when I recognized that I was gay, it was even worse. And obviously the people in school had recognized that too. And so I became a very easy target. And so rather than like deal with it and even like tell my parents it was happening, just decided, let's ignore this and let's be the best broadcaster I possibly can. I went to Glasgow, studied, joined STV. I read the news in Scotland for a few years. I was a reporter on a big radio station called Clyde One, and all the while just not dealing with those issues at all of the sort of confluence of religion and sexuality and really difficult conversations that needed to be had both with like family but also with myself. And so that all kind of came crashing down during COVID, and during that time eventually came through it just with the support of others. I would love to be able to say, oh yeah, by sheer power of will I went through it. No,
never works
no,
like
I
that.
had the support of my amazing partner Graham, who I now share this house with, and with good friends as well who kind of gone through similar things. The guitarist in my band, now he was living with me at the time as I was like tear filled coming out to my mother. He's slipping me G and T's to kind of keep the Dutch courage going. So that's really what helped me through it, which was the support of people who love you. It wasn't just, oh yeah, I was stronger, I was better, because I think anyone, sure, you need a little bit of resilience, but you actually need a lot more. And for me, I needed to have the support of other people of actually know what you're going through is normal. And this is a safe space. You can be whoever you want to be. And if people reject you for that, that's on them. And that took me a long time to come to terms with. And then eventually, yeah, like you say, I've come to a point where I'm self-employed. I make videos for businesses, sometimes in front of the camera, sometimes behind the camera. And so that sort of self-confidence I've always had. I think for a long time it was a mask to kind of just not deal with all the personal stuff. Whereas now, in a place where family have accepted me, have accepted the two of us for who we are, and with the ongoing support of friends, this is what has really helped me kind of for Gun Ghaol to be as fully formed as it has been, because I think I was in a place to do it and to really commit to it, rather than to be like, oh, I should probably deal with loads of other stuff first. I'd got to that, I'd got over that hurdle. So I would say the support of others has been invaluable because I could not have done this myself.
So almost to
It's
quote
interesting. It's mentioning a lot of the different stuff and the bullies at school and stuff like that. And now, last year when you were on stage in Glasgow, you came on stage dressed as a nun. So it's kind of it's almost like you're going to pick on me. Go ahead. I'm on stage singing Gaelic metal and I'm dressed however the fuck I want to dress. So it's kind of
Oh
just
yeah,
own it,
yeah.
because if you're not scared, what have they got to throw at you?
it's exactly that. It's why that Beartooth song "Doubt Me" I think was one of my highest played whenever it came out, because it was very much the sort of anthem which encapsulates that feeling.
Yeah, and yeah, and I think that's wonderful. I think that's it's always one thing I've loved about the metal community is it's been like the most metal thing you can be is yourself, isn't it? It doesn't matter what that is. You know as long as you can be you, and it's finding that well-being space. We're doing a lot of work at the moment when it comes to finding the well-being space, which is the space where you feel you can start to recover. Because without that, recovery in itself is really difficult. Development itself is really difficult because you're afraid.
Mhm.
You got to be you to become you. That's how it works. That's them rules. So yeah, on that, thank you very much. That's been
I
really,
can, I
really
can
good.
I can leave you with a Gaelic phrase, which is
Fucking bring
"She
it, mate.
the vehe," which is "you're welcome."
Yeah,
If you're translating it literally, "She the vehe" is "it's your life," and that's the funny way that Gaelic works. Sometimes you translate it to English, you think that doesn't mean you're welcome, but it's what you say
yeah,
for "you're welcome." So "She Do vehe. Sheda vehe. That's your welcome.
Oh, wonderful, yeah. And for everyone who's interested, if you look a little bit further down the link, I would have put all of Colin's suggestions for music up, which one of my favourite parts of doing this is talking to people way cooler than me and learning about new music myself. So thank you very, very much for that. That's me very happy, mate. So some of those tracks sound absolutely wonderful. Thank you so much. All the best in the new year. Let's hope that eventually become pioneer status.
It works for me. And yeah, let's book that in the diary for 2046.
All right, nice one. Thank you very much, Colin. Cheers, Matt, and big love to you all. Thank you very much.